Hi everyone. Three bits of admin to get into before today's episode. I'll try and keep it brief. First of all, next week's episode is with Bygnal, Dutson and Blake Smith, two of our favourite operators. Connor's the co-host on that one. We think it'll be a great episode. It's not yet been recorded, but I know it'll be a great one. That will be out on Monday rather than the usual Wednesday, and that's because the Glamping Show is happening Tuesday and Wednesday, and we thought it'll be good to get an episode out on the Monday so that people can maybe listen on the plane, in the car, however they're getting to the Glamping Show, to get you in the mood. So do feel free to check that out a couple of days earlier than usual. Second of all, just that reminder that I will be at the Glamping Show. I'm on booth 501 and I'll be representing Posh Outdoors, trying to raise some more money. If you want to come and say hello, regardless of whether you're interested in investing, then do come and say hello. It's always great to speak to the listeners, but particularly, if you are interested in learning more about the investment opportunity, then I would love to speak to you about it. Finally, just a little bit about today's episode. It's a little bit different to usual, as you can probably tell from the title. It's with Randy Henry from Campit Resort in Michigan, and that is a bit of a haven really for LGBTQ plus community. And as you'll learn if you listen to the episode, that is very much needed, and it's a very good thing that we're really proud to be able to talk about. So I do suggest just give it a listen, keep an open mind, and I expect you'll learn something. I certainly did, about some issues that people face that you might not consider in the glamping and camping world. Outside of that specific kind of social discussion, there's some great insights that are applicable to anyone interested in glamping. We talk about marketing to specific niches. We talk about selling merch. We talk about membership programs, creating a bit of a party atmosphere rather than the kind of laid back nature atmosphere. So there's a lot to listen to outside of the LGBTQ plus stuff, but I think it's all comes in one package, and I think it's definitely worth a listen to anyone. Next week will be a more typical episode with Bygnal and Blake. We're going to be talking to nature, guest experience, and all that good stuff. So feel free to give this one a listen. Do listen to Bygnal and Blake next week on the Monday on the way to the show if you're heading that way. And don't forget to say hello at booth 501. Until then, on to the episode. Welcome back to the show, Jacob.
Thank you. Very exciting guest.
Feels like it's been a little while, yeah. Today's guest is Randy Henry from Campit Resort in, I had to Google how to pronounce this, Saugatuck? Sagatuck. Oh, there you go. It's a very American pronunciation.
Yeah.
And today we've got something a little bit different. We're going to be talking all things LGBTQ plus glamping, because Campit is a resort geared towards LGBTQ people. And so it's going to be pretty interesting. I think, one, to talk about something that, we haven't really talked about before, and it's pretty interesting. Two, I think it's important to discuss particular issues that people face when it comes to finding places to camp and glamp, and to maybe raise a little bit of awareness about things that I wouldn't have been aware about to start with, for example. And also they're targeting a particular niche, and whilst people listening to this probably won't be setting up a gay glamping site, maybe they are, I don't know, but they might be wanting to target a particular niche, whether it's people from Silicon Valley or wherever. So I think there'll be a lot of applicable principles when we get onto the marketing discussions there as well. So
yeah, and let's just take a pause to congratulate Nick and Connor for graciously approaching the topic of LGBTQ plus people in the hospitality space and what that looks like. And I don't know, I listen to a lot of podcasts. This is not a topic being talked about, Nick, and you're really you are the one. I was not the one as the indoctrined person into that community. I was not the one with this idea. It was totally all Nick saying yeah, we should have a whole episode around this. So kudos to you, Nick. You definitely deserve some credit on that front.
Oh, thank you.
Representation.
Well, we're here for everyone.
Yeah, totally.
Were you aware of Campit before we arranged it?
No, this was amazing because then I got to see this little mecca and do my research on the back end of but this does not surprise me that it exists in the Midwest as an undercover kind of thing, and we can talk about that when Randy gets on. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Great. Well, here's Randy. Okay, so we're joined by Randy. Randy, tell us a little bit about Campit Resort.
So Campit, so many words that like make this place. It's amazing. It was founded, what we actually believe in 1978 as kind of uh, a hangout in the woods, essentially. And then in 1982, it was kind of officially a licensed for real campground, and they were really following suit with what Saugatuck was doing. By recently opening up the Dunes Resort, which at the time was one of the largest, LGBTQ resorts in the country, in a town of 500 people. So yeah, and we've just grown consistently every year since. Just marked 45 years, um, and we're growing again. We're building another 100 unit or so extension on the place.
What exciting! Congrats.
And so yeah, you mentioned there. I struggle with the pronunciation of this place every time. Saugatuck.
Saugatuck.
I don't think I don't think it's very easy for English people to pronounce. That's my excuse. But Saugatuck and the town it's next to Douglas there. When I was doing my research, they were described as long-time queer meccas.
Yes.
I'd be interested to know a little bit about the history of that place and how that came to be.
Yeah. So it almost seems like a whole bunch of perfect little storms happened in this town. Um, it's always been popular with bigger cities. So obviously Chicago, and artists and stuff coming over here to spend weekends on the water. And out of nowhere, and I want to say it was in the 50s, there was a hotel downtown. It was the first hotel, at least that we knew of in the Midwest, that would rent to gay male couples. And then it just spiraled from there, and to a point where Michigan liquor laws made it illegal to serve people that they knew were in fact gay, and the bars in Saugatuck refused to comply. And then it became the art coast, and it really is. It's you know Oxbow and all of these little galleries, and so much of it has just continued to stay locally LGBTQ owned.
Jacob and I were talking, very briefly in the intro about why it might be important to talk about these issues, and I think that is the best example is not too long ago. If you were gay, you were not allowed to be served at certain places.
Yeah.
And I think that's a cool story that's how the town got its name as a safe haven. And I'm sure there aren't that many places in the US that outright refuse to serve you if you're gay anymore. I'm sure there are some knock-on issues that people still face, that I'm not really qualified to talk about, but could you maybe explain why it's still important to this day that there might be places where it can be a safe haven for these people to go and enjoy themselves?
So it's interesting when you look before, and I don't want to go down that road, but if you look prior to 2016, really there was a lot of like mainstreaming happening. Is really the only way to put it. So you've seen gay bars starting to go away, or exclusive spaces, if you will, starting to go away. And then you look at after that election, and it suddenly became, excuse me, okay to be mean again. So there's kind of like a resurgence in all of this, and in the spaces, in towns. Why we need towns like this? Um, because more than ever, there's a whole lot of things going on in politics that want to take us back to you can't serve somebody because they're gay. Um, and this town is amazing. It just proves that it's possible to still bring all these people to one place and get along.
I was trying to like hint a little bit to like just the culture of the Midwest in general, like as in the sphere of like what the Midwest represents for the country, is that yes, it is a welcoming place, but it is also historic. Like I have family in Wisconsin. I spend all my summers in
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin, so I'm very familiar. My partner's from Western Michigan, so it's just like I know that vibe. Um, but it still is like a little hidden, like even though it's a welcoming place, a lot of things are still swept under the rug.
Yes.
So to say, like specifically in the Midwest of America, is this mecca and this resort and this outdoor campground that is friendly, not only friendly, it's owned, managed, and marketed to the LGBTQ community, it's important. And even someone who's in the space, in hospitality, loves glamping and camping, and is gay, still was a secret to me before Nick had brought up this amazing
Right.
spot that you have. So it's just like, I think it's important to continue to shine the light on establishments like yours, which is so important to just continuing the controlling of this community's narrative, right? Like you have control of the narrative at your space. And I think that's what you're alluding to, is that there's a lot of people that aren't in control of their narratives. And I see Campit as an opportunity for you to control that narrative for outdoor hospitality. And I appreciate that. As someone in the community, I appreciate what you're doing, Randy. It's very heartwarming.
It's that heartwarming is not a term you hear in this business very often, but that really is what we're going for. And you're right. Not only we're surrounded by not so accepting communities, we're in the middle of one. I mean, we're in the middle of what they consider Michigan's Bible Belt. So we're very lucky.
What does Saugatuck? I'll just butcher it and hope I get it right every time. What does
I think you're doing great. I think you're doing great. Yeah.
What does Saugatuck, whatever? What does it feel like as a place when you arrive in the town?
There's queues everywhere. There's pride flags everywhere. The sidewalks, the crosswalks are rainbow, but it looks like your average, cute little beach town. I've had people come to Campit even recently that came from, I believe it was Missouri, and that's what they thought this was like visiting the East Coast. Is what they felt like. It was a quaint, accepting little town on the water.
And the resort itself, what is the difference between a typical resort that doesn't cater to any specific communities versus a resort like Campit, which focuses specifically and is obviously welcoming to all, but has that target market of LGBTQ. I'm messing that up now as well. LGBTQ people. Like, what does the resort feel like, and what's distinctive about it?
So I think if you just looked at us on the surface, you wouldn't see a bunch of differences in what we offer, but one of the biggest things is we have to make people feel safe. And in our case, feeling safe is vastly different than someone going to, KOA or Yogi Bear down the road. And it's really important. You get a lot of people that come through here that can't believe something like this exists. And so then it's scary, because now all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I can do whatever I want, but I'm terrified to because I've never done it before.
Yeah.
So I think, so the what makes us different really, and it goes down to, our staff a lot. And it's so that from check-in to check-out, they constantly feel like they're in a safe space wherever they are.
The way that you make your guests feel and the fact they feel safe, how would they feel if they were going to a resort that, wasn't, I don't know. How does a resort come across as not particularly welcoming, and how do people have to moderate their behavior in if that is the case?
I go to a lot. It's one of the things we like to do in the winter is go explore a lot of other places, whether they're meant specifically for us or not. You never know. I'd say for the most part, for me, I would feel fine going nearly anywhere, but that doesn't mean that my best friend, next door who's transgender feels the same way, and I'm sure there's lots of cues that they're looking at that I don't notice that would point to safety or not. But, and one of the things that we do here is we don't allow flags. And as weird as that may sound, that's the first thing I notice when I go somewhere else is what kind of flags are hanging up all over the place. Because, unfortunately, now more than ever, that means a lot. So there's certain things, if I see it, I know we shouldn't be here. Or not even just shouldn't be here, we shouldn't be us here, sort of thing.
I think also, Nick, to your point, and this just from, regular culture, like all people present themselves different ways. So like someone like myself or Randy, who's like masculine presenting gay males, received differently in society than somebody that may be more feminine presenting, or their true selves manifests or looks a different way than what it looks like for Randy and I, where it's the pause where it's like, can I be my true self? Right. And I think what Randy's mission is to take that pause away, or you should feel that right away, where it's just like very obvious that like you can be your genuine self, because even people in the gay community augment their personalities to fit in. It's just like the reality of anyone that's different or other, so it's just like, I think that's the biggest thing, where it's like, I'm not a big PDA person anyway, but like if I wanted to grab my partner's hand like while we're on vacation, I would feel way more comfortable doing it at Campit than let's say another KOA or something that's across the country.
Yeah, and that, I suppose, I assume that's the kind of thing where people quite often take for granted that they can walk hand in hand with their partner if they're straight, right? No one's going to be offended by that. Whereas I think people like me, I wouldn't even think twice about holding a woman's hand, but presumably you're in the back of your mind, you're thinking, am I going to get challenged for this? Am I going to get abused for this? Is that always in your mind when you're anywhere?
No, I think it's definitely something that is an identifier for who you are in a bigger ism of these conversations, Yeah.
Okay, so one question I had was, if someone is setting up a resort that is not specifically targeted to a particular minority, for example, how do you make sure that you are welcoming to those minorities so that they do feel safe and that they don't feel uncomfortable? It's
kind of the same concept. As anybody else coming through the door, we are just overly nice to everyone. We treat everybody with respect, and also, so many people come here with a story, and I mean, 9 times out of 10, there's a reason they found this place, because we are, once you find us, we're pretty specific. Everything says, every photograph, everything says what we are. So, now more than ever that's happening. But it's great. I actually was up there earlier and checking in a bunch of, a whole group of mainstream straight married couples that, just heard through the grapevine how much fun we are, and now they're here for the weekend.
Nice. And I feel like, I hope I'm not stereotyping here, but I feel like your weekends will be fun at that resort. I feel like you guys can have a good time. And it would be fun for everyone.
We do. I'm sure you'd imagine something this big. It is a lot. And a lot goes into making every weekend happen. And that includes, a 12 person committee that meets every week just to pull off each weekend. So we start right at the top with our events coordinator, who is this, incredible guy, an actor from California, and, stage plays all over Chicago. So, he brings a super unique aspect to planning these weekends out.
What kind of weekends do you have?
So a bunch of them do vary each year, but we have some of our staples, so the obvious holidays. And one of our biggest, though, is a Christmas in July show, where we write a new play every year, and that is, the main show of the weekend. And what's super interesting about that is that's also, a lot of these things stem from our seasonals that have been here for a long time, that, kind of create these things, and they host them. And as they get bigger and bigger and bigger, we make them an event. So, that is easily one of our largest summertime, bashes that is hosted on someone's deck, in our Central Park neighborhood.
Randy, how many sites do you have? And then can you give the mix of like tent sites versus RV sites? And I imagine there's some folks that are staying full time, right, that are employees that are parked on site. Can you give me that mix?
Yeah. So seasonals, they are kind of 6 months out of the year. People are 106. Tent sites are right around 100. And that's including, we do electric, and we do a lot of rustic. And then about another 100 transient sites, or those are like our weekend RVers. And then lodging, anything with a roof over it, we're probably pushing towards 60.
This is a big operation, Randy. This is a big gay mecca sitting in the middle of Michigan.
It is its own little. We have been saying it for years. I swear we are our own culture. The way we talk, the way we move here. This is a town. This is a small town in a small town.
But I think that's part of the draw, right? It's like you're creating a true sense of place that is totally unique to anywhere else in the country. It's totally unique to any state that I've come across. But it's like, yeah, when you're building your own culture in that way, it just gives me goosebumps. I'm like, how lucky are the people that are camping with Randy right now? Like, how lucky are they to be in your care and what you're bringing and the level of like security and just fun and excitement. And, you know, it's just like, it's really sweet. Like, I'm so mad. I've been to your area so many times. I'm so mad that I've missed my chance. Well, I haven't missed it. I just haven't had it yet.
No, you know, and I get it. We've gone a long time, not necessarily doing the type of advertising that we should, and that was on purpose. That was to avoid, you know, the pushback sort of thing. But the last couple of years, we have just like blasted ourselves out into the universe, and you know, working with magazines from some larger cities. This year, we're going to start partnering up with. What is it, the Pink Triangle News, and we're really getting out there. But we're also kind of off the beaten path from Saugatuck too.
Yeah.
Marketing is one thing I want to talk about, just because, you know, it's interesting in how you guys market, but also I think there's definitely universal principles when you're targeting a particular niche. You know, that can be applied to whatever niche you might be targeting. So you say you kind of work with magazines. Like, what does that look like?
So our biggest right now is Metra out of Detroit. Metra was, you know, at some point, you know, kind of like an old school, you know, bar magazine that was advertised the scene in the area. And it's a great group of people. And you know, we often just take out 2-page ads to highlight the upcoming weekends. And, you know, and depending on the type of weekend coming up, you know, we'll throw our foundation in there too to highlight the charity that we're going to do, you know, that month. We also work with Be Bliss out of Chicago. It's another kind of in the scene marketing agency. It is, you know, not only lesbian owned, but it's, you know, people of color owned, and they specialize in marketing to inner city people and creating events around them. So it's actually an event that they produce some stuff for us here even. And Pink Triangle is a new one that we're still kind of working on, and it came out of Squirt Diet. That is where that's where that originated. And I had no idea that they were so commingled in all of these kind of other classic marketing places, and one of them is the Pink Triangle News.
Around these niches, there are quite often publications like that. I remember back when the podcast started years ago, we were targeted. Well, we were focused on the UK market. And I interviewed someone who had a small glamping site that specifically catered to people with disabilities and additional needs. And obviously they were open for people who weren't in that situation, but that was their thing. That was what they marketed around. That was who they targeted. And they had a similar story of, you know, there were particular publications and groups that they could speak to directly, that they could kind of get the message through, and that would bring people in. And, you know, it's a little bit scarier targeting a particular niche, because, you know, you are obviously cutting off a larger portion of the market, but you have those opportunities to be really specific in your marketing. And I imagine the people receiving that marketing are a lot more responsive because it speaks more directly to them. So it sounds like there's a big business opportunity as well as doing what's right when you're you know, targeting particular niches like this.
I was just wondering, do you have like typical like economic cycles, or do you feel the need to go out and procure that business, or is the returning guests and the tradition building what you're doing on site bringing it back?
It's an interesting question. You know, we've gone in cycles where we might spend a summer at Pride, but then the next summer we realize that, you know, that time we spent didn't have a return. We've done big campaigns in Facebook and even realized that, you know, Facebook has almost more of a negative return a lot of the time. And something that we're exploring, and, you know, sorry for anyone that listens to this and I haven't told them that yet, is we tried out a thing a couple of years ago where we called it a bar takeover. And what we would do is we would take our, little troop to these random cities, and no one would know we were coming, and we would say, this is where we're from, and this is what we want to do at your bar, and we're going to hand out all these free weekends. And we did it in Louisville, Kentucky, of all places, for the first time a couple of years ago, and had a blast. And not that the return was huge, but I one of the people that I remember actually handing this free weekend to has now been to our park no less than a dozen times since. And it's something I want to explore. Winter is always a time for us to reevaluate what we're doing for the next year. And I think there's a lot of value in that, in this kind of camp it on tour type of advertising.
Do you have an end date for your season? Like, is there a hard stop?
Essentially. So our summer season is April 1st to November 1st. And then what we call our winter season starts November 1st. So we switch over to a different end of our park that stays open all winter long, and we go and do monthly events.
Nice.
And they're super, super important to a lot of people because it's Thanksgiving and it's Christmas, and a lot of our members don't have a place to go otherwise. So
yeah. Have you thought about doing like a membership actually for your super fans, where it's just like a seasonal, like this is your April through November rate and you can drop in at any time? Does that sound exciting? It just came to mind.
Yeah. So we've actually tried that. What we did, we originally called it the All Access Pass, and what that gave you was an unlimited tenting for, essentially a subscription price. And the downside to that is Michigan has too many laws to work around on how long somebody can be in a tent.
Gotcha.
And in a place this large, it's so hard to track that. So we've stuck with what we call our social pass, and you can purchase a social pass and, good for all the amenities, come and go as you please sort of thing.
What do the holidays look like at Campit?
I almost said a headache, and I don't want it to sound the wrong way. It's crazy. I mean, it really is. 4th of July is the biggest, kind of federal holiday here. And, the way that falls every season, it's like that week gets longer and longer and longer. So, this past season was 4 days. Our actual physical check-in days were 4 days straight. And the way we structure our events, 4th of July often comes off a Monday through Friday event. So we are sold out the week prior, we're sold out the Monday to Friday, and then we go right into sold out from, Friday to Monday again. It's a long couple of weeks.
On your website, there's listed, you have a toy store. Now, I imagine you're not selling Buzz Lightyears in that store. I mean, maybe you said, well, I don't know. I don't know.
Out of context.
Yeah.
You had to choose Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah, all right. I was going to say Woody, but that's probably even worse.
No. So that the room has a lot of nicknames actually, and it really it's sort of an essential. Actually, if you really want to break it down, a lot of these things, people are too embarrassed to buy in real life, in a store or have it shipped or anything like that. So we do carry a lot of essentials for someone, and that room includes things like leatherware and harnesses and, everything you need to have a great time and everything you need to have a great time and not being embarrassed about buying it.
Okay, that's the toy store. That's great. Back onto marketing as well. I expect there's a lot of word of mouth marketing in this world.
Yes, very, very much. And probably what we survived and grew on for, 20 years or more. And
repeat bookings as well, I assume?
Yeah. We have a great new system this year that, tracks our returning members, and, it's high. It's in the, it's high 60%.
Yeah, and again, there's a similar story with the accessible glamping site that I talked about in the UK. I'm sure it's similar if you've got resorts aimed at ethnic minorities, whatever it may be, and it doesn't even have to be a minority. It might be just a particular niche, and if you do that, and if you're brave enough to target that smaller crowd, then you do it well, you will have additional benefits when it comes to word of mouth marketing, the effect of the marketing because it's so specifically targeted, and repeat customers. And I think, you know, if you are brave enough to not cut off the market, but just be a bit more specific with your marketing, then if you put it off, then the returns can be massive, and it's a real opportunity. And everyone that I've spoken to that has targeted a particular niche is doing very, very well because of that.
Yeah, I could see where guerrilla marketing helps. You know, the bar takeover is really clever, little pride events, you know, but I think it's also like, how do you piggyback it off of, like, if someone's having a conference in Chicago, right? And it's like, how do you just have them extend their trip to then come stay in one of your units, you know, or something like that. Like, that's where my brain goes, is like, is there an opportunity for Campit to offer these invitations of like, hey, I know that we're not the ones that brought you into town, but since you're here, we'd love to take care of you. You know, it's just really cool to think about like what you can do, boots on the ground. Because I'm like trying to think of like gay market. I was like, what am I looking at, and which like it would just like pop up on my. Right. There's not a lot.
The toy store would sell me, just out of curiosity.
Totally.
You know, I've tried some super random, you know, just to see what would happen by, you know, teaming up with some of the apps for advertisements, and no.
Right.
You know, never again.
You're like, I would get more with Sunset Magazine, please. Sunset Magazine, please come do a story of Campit.
What happened when you tried the apps?
So they have got, what I've noticed, they have a really kind of archaic advertising system, and so I didn't realize that when you know, form responses were going to come to me as text messages, and you know, I think I read some things I should never say that is recorded. So cancel that real quick.
You said when I sent you the running order, you also mentioned that every weekend is Women's Weekend at Campit. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. You know, I'm going to be honest with you. When reading that question, I went to, you know, Michael, our owner, and I said, I need help answering this in a way that doesn't hurt someone else, because it really is a very interesting question in this business. You know, sadly, when you think of gay camping, and if you even, you know, were to Google it, you're going to see 9 times out of 10 a male, I should say a white male nude, period. You know, and that's what they're geared to. And that's great if that's for their business and it works. Then, you know, do it. But we don't do all that. There are very few places where you can, you know, hold hands with your same-sex partner, or, you know, or hold hands with your transgender partner, or hold hands with your black partner. You know what I mean? That we would never think of not including women in our business. It just doesn't make sense. It's weird to think of. And, you know, prior to probably, you know, about 20 years ago, we were that kind of, you know, scary male dominated space, even though it was never meant to be, obviously. But in about the last 5 years, we have, you know, went all in on advertising and marketing to women and transgender, because they're both a big, important piece of all of this.
Yeah, and I've actually had a few questions on Posh Outdoors about how we're, you know, going to make women feel safe at our sites. And to be honest, I'll be completely upfront, it's not something that we considered too much, and I'm glad it was raised. But you know, women quite often feel, you know, they have to be constantly be aware, right, of you know, their surroundings, and you know, and that's 50% of the population. So everyone really, you know, apart from, you know, probably straight white males, you know, everyone is in some kind of, not minority, but has additional considerations going on, and you know, if you know that, then there's an opportunity there as well to make sure that you do make those people feel safe, and you do put them at ease, because, you know, they're not going to enjoy the vacation if they're not at ease. So
yeah, like breaking down some walls left over from the 90s, though, Randy, where there was this like false narrative of like gays and lesbians and how this is like opposition forces, which is just like not true. Like we need our lesbian sisters to help float the boat. Right. You know,
have you ever received any public opposition and pushback from, you know, say, conservative groups?
You know, nothing comes to mind recently. You know, aside from, our newer kind of advertising strategy with using Facebook, I see it on there way more often than I wish, and way more often than I've seen in the past. I myself, and even, some of our guys that, just handle our marketing, spend a kind of an uncomfortable amount of time in a day removing comments and blocking people and that sort of thing. There was a time that Michael was telling me this really crazy story of having to essentially sue our township to force them to recognize that the zoning laws that applied to our neighbor also applied to the gay campground. And it's something that he talks about often, that, that's what it took, because it was a no otherwise, but, they took a lot of money from us. And that was how we've been able to expand, was just to get recognized that we do exist. We're not going anywhere. Everyone follows the rules you make. So, but we still get the people that honk. That's the one thing I notice most often is, we're a very long and narrow park on a very busy road, and not a day goes by where someone's not laying on a horn from end to end. But, what you're saying is super important. So one thing that we have done, just in case, in recent years, is we have really, really doubled down on things like, unfortunately, like active shooter training and where to go and who to call and, that sort of thing. I'd rather be prepared than it just happened tomorrow.
Yeah. I think it's important to acknowledge the progress. I'm sure like what the owner that you were, what Michael was doing is, he was really out on the limb, at the beginning, and things have kind of stabilized, and we should recognize that. There's still some work to do, obviously, but I think you guys should start franchising. I've got like 10 campgrounds in my brain that do something.
Right. That's amazing. So, that's it. Again, it's such an important thing you just said. So that is our expansion that we're doing, is not what most people would think is, your brightest idea, because we're looking at post-retirement. So we're looking at, we don't have that crowd sold on Campit yet. So we're envisioning and building this kind of, quieter, lots of safer amenities, easy in pool sort of thing, larger sites, and the goal is to attract that crowd to, also experience this over there too.
How do you keep it quiet after someone's taken a haul from the toy store?
They do that in private. But, given what it is, obviously we can be a loud place, but we are also very strict on noise here. So. Yeah.
You mentioned when I sent the running order that one thing you'd like to talk about is that the housing and training you provide to marginalized communities. So do you want to maybe speak about that a little bit?
Yeah. Again, it's something that not enough businesses look at. And it came to us by accident. We didn't realize we were doing anything wrong. But, we have reached out to especially, transgender groups in our areas and really focused on getting them employed and getting them a place to live. We are definitely probably the only source of that in this area, that has the ability to house people, and also, has the ability to say something like, we don't care about everything down there. You're here to be our family now. So it's a huge outreach. It's something very new that we're working with different, like Grand Rapids Pride Center and stuff like that on, letting the people know that you're not unemployable. So,
and that is presumably pretty rewarding.
Very much. Not only do we have, an incredible staff, excuse me, but, I can think of a very specific story where I brought someone, someone came here. And at the time, all they had was a tent, and that was 2 years ago. And now we have them, in a house, and they have a vehicle, and they are, our head housekeeper, and they're amazing. It's one of my favorite success stories. And it was, a trans couple that just could not find their place here.
Well, we've reached the end of the running order. Jacob, I don't know whether you had any other questions or anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, it's a the gays, as I'm going to describe it, they can be I want to go back to this enforcement of quiet hours because this has come up on a couple other podcasts that we've had. And I know the unruly bunch that you have camping with you. But I think how you're countering that is programming, right? Like you guys are doing activities and programming to like create this like fiesta, and these special weekends, right? So does that help? Does that help like with the distraction and the techniques and what does that look like when someone from our community just is acting out?
It does, and I'll tell you, I was in the bar business before this, and post-COVID, one of the first things that we did was we moved everything an hour earlier, and I could not believe the difference it made by moving every event 1 hour sooner. And it's not to be like nefarious in any way, but you're right, it does work. If we keep you busy throughout the day, you're going to be a lot quieter after 10 o'clock.
There you go. Tire everyone out and they won't make noise.
But you have the pool, right? Like you guys have a lot of amenities. You have so many amenities. I don't think we got to talk about the amenities of the campground itself. So can you run through that list a little bit?
Yeah. So again, we're a huge place. It's so big that everything is in neighborhoods. I don't know if you guys saw, looked at a map or anything, but so in every neighborhood is again, it's a culture and a culture. So, there's 3 bathhouses, 2 of which are gender free. And one we kept for those that preferred it that way. We have gaming area. We've got a massive heated pool that on the weekends is open till 3 a.m., which is also a good distractor.
What? That should make headlines news by itself. Like that is crazy.
Yes. Friday and Saturday nights, our pool is open from 11 a.m. to 3 a.m.
That sounds fun. I'd like to join that pool party. That'd be fun.
Well, I'll let you make that decision.
I'll just observe.
But
yeah, you could be the observer. Yeah. You could keep score.
As long as I've got a beer, that's fine.
Right. In another really interesting way that is to me an amenity and kind of helps control sound is, we have this just incredible kind of engineering minded guy. Again, a mainstream couple that loves it here. They're employees of ours. They're seasonals now. And he's building us out what he's calling his version of, the 80s MTV. So all of our TVs, all of our speakers, all of our music, every single thing is automated and preset for the day. So the volume adjusts itself. So, from, noon to like 6, it's loud and purposely loud and it's party music at the pool. And then, at 6 to 9, it cuts it down until we hit 10 p.m. And the whole park cuts right down to kind of a dim, quiet alternative, and that helps a lot.
That's something I've not heard before on here or anywhere else is the specifics of putting together a playlist that obviously helps control the noise, but also creates the experience as well. In fact, I don't think we've ever talked about music on here. Does that play I think because quite often the glamping resorts we speak to are more quiet and enjoy the nature, but yours is a bit more of a kind of active and party vibe. So does music play a big part in your experience?
It does. It plays a huge part. I think that that 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. low chill out music is super helpful to calm the crowd down. And because it's true, when I say crowd, there could be 150 people standing around that pool at 2 o'clock in the morning.
This 3 a.m. thing is blowing my mind. I cannot get off of it.
Jacob's booking his flights as we speak.
I really am like, do you have a New Year's party? Because we have a buyout at the resort, so I can get away for that time. Yeah.
So we actually do, but you would not want to be in our pool on New Year's. It's very cold here. Oh, yeah. Lots of snow.
Do you sell alcohol on site?
We sell to go. It's a county thing. It's how we're licensed. So we sell beer and wine in our store. Our store is unbelievably successful. It doesn't, it's one of those things that even in my head, I'm like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Oh, we know why this store works. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's the back room.
Yeah. Any F&B as well? Or is that all from the store?
All from the store. Our store is it's an anomaly. We do sell a lot of beer. But if it has our name on it, it's gone. I believe I just got an order of something like another 150 sweatshirts that most likely will be gone by Monday.
Oh, I'm sure the merch game is strong there. That does not surprise me at all.
I've spoken to a lot of operators, and a lot of them really have tested out merch, but it's not, they've not put that much effort into it, or it's not a big part of their business. But it sounds like if you really create a strong brand and culture and community at a resort, then it can add a nice little bit of extra to the bottom line.
Yeah. And we've taken a lot of that back in house, which was a really interesting move. But it was a good move. Obviously business wise, because the margins were bigger, but also it's made it really fun because we've been able to create this kind of fun contest around it of, you're a member of Campit, design our next shirt for us sort of thing. And so we keep a corner in our store that, says that it's designed by members, and it's all wares that they've made for us.
It sounds like you encourage a lot of mingling between guests, and that's a big part of the experience, is meeting new people.
Also, also very true. We host, I don't know if you've heard of it, the Gay Camping Friends Midwest Meetup.
No, tell us about this.
It is a huge. It started as a Facebook group. John Anderson is a great guy out of New Orleans that started this whole thing, and he only visits inclusive campgrounds. And so we do the Midwest one in August every year, and when he asked us, what would you say, the bottom line of your culture, what is it? And we were all kind of pondering on it, and we realized that it's firewood. That's the bottom line of our culture, is firewood. So every year we do the same thing. And if you're a newbie, if you just came in with the Gay Camping Friends group, we give you free firewood, and we tell them we're giving you this because you can sit, I don't care if it's 5 a.m, start a fire, you'll have a crowd of people in 10 minutes. Everybody, it's a big thing here to site hop and jump around and meet people around a fire.
Is there a way you encourage that?
It just happens. It's what drew me in. It's how I ended up, to this place, and it's just a thing.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I'm very, it's just one. I want to reiterate. That's not a word. I would love to iterate again. Thank you, Nick, for the platform, for Campit. I think it's really unique what you guys are offering. And I think we should come into the light. I don't think it has to be this thing that bubbles under the surface that only the cool gays of the Midwest know about.
Right.
I'm happy that this is going to go to the cool gays all across the world, because of the platform. But also, yeah, it's okay. It's okay to camp. Camping is for everyone. The outdoors is for everyone. And people in the outdoor industry say that, but you're living that in what you do, Randy. You're living that, Nick, in what you do in the platform that you're providing and what you're creating. So, yeah, good job, Team Awesome, on that front.
Yeah, so I want to tell you both those, since you used that term, that is what we all say here. Every staff member, we've got our guest in on it too, is anytime anyone asks us how we're doing, we tell them, we're living the dream, because it's so true.
Yeah. That's a great way to end off. So if there are any cool gays or uncool gays or non-gays that want to stay at Campit, then the link will be in the description. Randy, anything that you want to say or pitch just before we finish off?
No, yeah, I want to thank you for doing this. It was really exciting, and you've created kind of a fun little buzz between all of us here for it. So.
All right, well, thanks, guys. Next week, we have Bygnal, Dutson and Blake Smith on from Open Sky, Zion and Walden Retreats in Texas. So that's going to be going out on Monday, specifically for people who are heading to the Glamping Show and they want to listen on the way. So do check it out on Monday morning rather than usual Wednesday. But yeah, until then, we'll speak soon, and thank you, guys.